Stats are often misleading, and that can't be more true than for the Montreal Canadiens, who, despite having a great start of their season, have some serious issues they need to address. On this week's Four Downs, we're breaking down the Montreal Canadiens 4 different ways, and as always, we invite you to join the conversation at facebook.com/RBTL Sports, as well as on Twitter at RBTL Sports. On this week's show, we welcome this man, Tim Macdonell. You're the president of Elite Sports Tours. Great to see you. We'll talk a little bit about your sports packages a little bit later on in the show. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
To his right is my co-host, as always, Anthony Corneli. Great to have you back.
Thank you very much.
And to my left is David Hurley, RBTL contributor and co-host. Great to see you as well.
Thank you.
So the numbers definitely lie when we talk about the Montreal Canadiens. There's a lot of gaps, a lot of addressing to do with regards to certain moves that coaches have made, certain players that need to step up. We'll start with you, David. What's one of the things that's really stood out to you with regards to the Montreal Canadiens where the numbers are definitely lying?
Well, the problem is, to me, is David Hurley. I mean, as your number one centerman, you can't have 7 games without a point. That's a little bit ridiculous. If you're playing with Pacioretty, who's a 39 goal scorer last season, we need him to have some offensive production. If he's not going to produce, we need to switch it up. I mean, and unfortunately...
But who's that fall? Which shoulders does that fall on if you keep playing Dayana in the first line? I mean, isn't that the coach's responsibility? Does
yes,
that fall on
it is the coach's mistake. But again, Marc Bergevin gave him a contract that's a little bit too long and too ridiculous for David Hurley. What he brings to the table at 5'7", 180 pounds, but he's probably $160 wet. He's not really doing the job for me. I think you should put a Galchenyuk, put a Plekanec, but it's the connection that he has with Pacioretty that's just fantastic right now.
Do you agree?
I disagree, to be totally honest. I really like what he brings to the team as far as, but obviously the numbers aren't there. He's not producing what you need, but I think that goes down with a long list of individuals on the Montreal Canadiens. I think Rene Bourque's a guy that they brought in last season. They made a trade. I think you need to expect a little bit more from him.
Except for the playoff run.
The playoff run is great, but unfortunately we're not in the playoffs last year anymore. This is a new season. And right now they had a hot start and they need to capitalize. They came back from a bad road swing where basically they picked up 2 out of 8 possible points, and one of them was an overtime win, right? Yeah. So as far as performance goes, that's not the expectations that the fans or anybody has of this Montreal Canadiens. So I think it kind of brought them down to earth, and it goes beyond just the first line centerman, right? Like I think you need that goal scoring across the board. You can't just rely on the Montreal Canadiens team to have these small spurts of offensive production, but then you see them in other games where they're getting blown out by Edmonton or Calgary and stuff.
Well, that's it. Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because you talk about being blown out, right? You talk about Tampa Bay 7-1, 3-0 against Edmonton, which there was no reason why the Canadiens should have lost that game. I don't care who Yakupov is, right? That should have been in the bag, a Western trip. They should have got their points. But you look at the way they're being blown out, the way they're losing games. This is way more than just individuals not playing. I mean, this could also be a mental thing too. Are you pleased with the way that Michel Therrien is refusing to? I mean, he's shuffling all the lines. None of the lines are the same as they were last year when they did their deep playoff cup run. How do you feel about that? Do you feel that Therrien's got to make some moves here?
I think he might have lost the locker room. Not naming a captain could be a problem. You have guys like Plekanec that have been in the Montreal Canadiens organization for 10 years now. He captained the Czech Republic at the Olympics year in and year out with guys like Jaromir Jagr. How can he not captain the Montreal Canadiens?
I think I agree with you on that one. I think they did drop the ball and not giving Plekanec the seat.
I don't think so.
I think they want to give it to Subban, and Subban's immaturity is the kind of the big worry. They're thinking about Pacioretty or him because they have long-term contracts, and Plekanec's coming up, and they're not sure they're going to renew him.
But if you watch the 24CH, you know that there's leadership there. Just because there's no C on the team. You see Malhotra right on the 24CH. You see how he steps up and he's the talker. Sure, he's 39 years old.
He's a veteran.
Sure, but I don't think it's entirely based on the fact that there's a lack of leadership.
I think there may be too many voices in the locker room.
That could
you should have, we all know that Thomas Plekanec and Andrei Markov, if you're looking at veterans on the team, are not very vocal guys.
Absolutely.
But they're guys that game in, game out, play with their heart, and they show the talent.
The guys that are vocal, guys like PK Subban, they're big, flamboyant on the ice. They got to lead not only by flashy goals, they got to lead first by defense.
Yeah, and PK's been, I mean, if you look at the numbers, I mean, he's the most penalized D-man in the league. There's been countless amount of goals that have been scored on the Canadiens when he's been in the penalty box. Yeah. He's not leading by example. It's been Markov who's actually, believe it or not, the workhorse, who's pulling that. These are the things that people don't like about PK. This is the side that people don't like about PK. You can pay him money, he can be flash, he can dig out the goalie. We saw that a couple of weeks back. But when it comes to leadership, when it comes to doing the right little things on the ice, he doesn't seem to do it. And for the last couple of games, I think he's taken a step back. He's not playing his best hockey.
I mean, getting that $9 million contract might have gotten a little bit to his head, but you have to think of it. PK Subban is going to be the future, and in a couple of years, that $9 million is going to be relative to a $6 million contract now. The salary cap's just going to go up with that Rogers Sports deal.
Sure.
So you know that the NHL's that extra revenue is going to come back up. But PK Subban is still a little immature, and that's why I don't think he should have been captain. I think they dropped the ball. They should have gave it to Plekanec or even Markov. But again,
you agree with Plekanec as a captain?
I like him as what he brings to the team, but to be totally honest, I don't necessarily think the captain's the issue on the team or the voices. I think you lost key pieces with Briere leaving Gionta. I know Gionta was a time, to kind of move in a different direction, but when you lose those key guys, those are kind of like the grit, and you see that Briere was, in my opinion, a big part of that playoff run last year, and just to lose him basically, and you shore up your bottom lines. He's a veteran guy. Maybe he's the guy who can keep certain players in line, and maybe you don't need guys like PK or whoever to be as vocal, right? They're, like you mentioned, they're really young. Maybe PK is not that guy or at that right point right now. He's a great superstar player, but maybe he's not the guy or that people, older veterans want to take, advice from, because he is sometimes caught out on the blue line and getting blown by and causing mistakes, and ultimately sometimes they cost the team games, or other players, you lose their motivation, right? So I think there's a lot of small changes in that locker room, and whether it be lineups or different players, that kind of ultimately change the makeup of this team right now.
Love what you bring to the show, but we're changing up gears. I know you're a big NFL fan as well. We're talking about the Arizona Cardinals, gentlemen, to find out if you guys think they are pretenders or contenders. That's coming up right after this.